Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 9, the most confidential knowledge, text number 25. Yanti Deva Vrata Devan.
Yanti Deva Vrata Devan.
Pitri Yanti Patri Vrataha.
Pitri Yanti Pitri Vrataha.
Bhutani Yanti Bhuteja.
Bhutani Yanti Bhuteja.
Yanti Madhyajino Pimam.
Yanti Madhyajino Pimam.
Yanti Deva Vrata Devan.
Yanti Deva Vrata Devan.
Pitrin Yanti Patri Vrataha.
Pitri Yanti Pitri Vrataha.
Bhutani Yanti Bhuteja.
Bhutani Yanti Bhuteja.
Yanti Madhyajino Pimam.
Yanti Madhyajino Pimam. Yanti Deva Vrata Devan.
Patri Vrataha. Yanti Yanti Bhuteja. Yanti Madhyajino Pimam. Yanti Deva Vrata Devan. Yanti Patri Vrataha. Tani Yanti Bhuteja. Yanti Madhyajino Pimam. Yanti Deva Vrata Devan. Pitri Yanti Patri Vrataha. Bhutani Yanti Bhuteja. Yanti Madhyajino Pimam. Matajis. Yanti Deva Vrata Devan. Vidranti Yanti Patri Vrataha. Bhutani Yanti Bhuteja. Yanti Madhyajino Pimam. Yanti go. Deva Vrata. Worshippers of demigods. Devan to the demigods. Pitrin to the ancestors. Yanti go. Pitri Vrata. Worshippers of ancestors. Bhutani to the ghosts and spirits. Yanti go. Bhuta Ija. Worshippers of ghosts and spirits. Yanti go. Mat my. Yajina devotees. Api but. Mam unto me. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Those who worship the demigods will take birth among the demigods. Those who worship the ancestors go to the ancestors. Those who worship ghosts and spirits will take birth among such beings. Those who worship me will live with me. Purport. One has any desire to go to the moon, the sun, or any other planet, one can obtain the desired destination by following specific Vedic principles recommended to that purpose, such as the process technically known as Darsha Purnamasi. These are vividly described in the Fruit of Activities portion of the Vedas, which recommends a specific worship of demigods situated on different heavenly planets. Similarly, one can obtain the Pitta planets by performing a specific yagya. Similarly, one can go to many ghostly planets and become a yaksha, raksha, or pishacha. Pishacha worship is called black arts or black magic. There are many men who practice this black art and they think that it is spiritualism. But such activities are completely materialistic. Similarly, a pure devotee who worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead only achieves the planet of Vaikuntha and Krishna Loka without a doubt. It is very easy to understand through this important verse that by simply worshiping the demigods, one can achieve the heavenly planets, or by worshipping the pittas, achieve the pitta planets, or by practicing the black arts, achieve the ghostly planets. Why can the pure devotee not achieve the planet of Krishna or Vishnu? Unfortunately, many people have no information of these sublime planets where Krishna and Vishnu live. And because they do not know them, they fall down. Even the impersonalists fall down from the Brahma Jyoti. The Krishna consciousness movement is therefore distributing sublime information to the entire human society to the effect of simply chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. One can become perfect in this life and go back home, back to Godhead. Yanti deva vrta devan pitri yanti patri vrataha bhutani yanti bhuteja yanti madhyajino pimam. Those who worship the demigods will take birth among the demigods. Those who worship the ancestors go to the ancestors. Those who worship ghosts and spirits will take birth among such beings. Those who worship me will live with me. Namo Vishnu Vidaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutaya Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatunde Ve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskyadyate Satarane. Here the mechanism where we go next is declared to be worship. And we know that the complete, or a more complete picture is that Krishna is arranging our next destination according to our desires and what we deserve. That he knows the accumulated result, what should be the accumulated results of our desires and what our activities have been. And through different agents, whether it be Yama Raj or if one go to the heavenly planets directly, depending where we're going next, Krishna has different agents who award us our desires and the results of our activities. Now, the results of our activities are also based upon desire. They're not separate. As it goes, thinking, feeling, and then willing. So our willing is just a more intense manifestation of desiring. And what are our desires? Our desires can either be material or spiritual. And amongst the material desires, there can be in the mode of ignorance, they can be in the mode of passion, or they can be in the mode of ignorance. But they're all material. Now, we can use the example that sometimes probably uses as wet stool and dry stool. In India, they pass stool in the fields, and some people declare very emphatically that the wet side of the stool is very good. That's the fact that the part that's not facing the sun, and this part that's facing the sun is dry is not very good. And other people have another opinion, that actually the dry part is very good and the wet part is very bad. But after all, the subject matter is stool. So similarly, we have here, either you can become a demigod, you can become a Buddha, Yanti Deva, Vrta Deva, Pitri Yanti. You can go to the Pitri planet, which is a heavenly planet, kind of heavenly planet. You can come to this earth planet, or you can become a demigod, according to your desires. Now, it's not that everything is equal. In other words, to become a ghost, Buddha requires a lot of effort. Well, generally it requires a lot of effort. In this age, they made it very easy. As a matter of fact, people already they're practically ghosts already. It's not much of a change. This age. To become a ghost, you have to perform so many sinful activities that you become practically ghosts already. And most people we can say are qualified. They're living a ghostly existence. To become a demigod is normally not easy either. It's generally not easy and practically impossible in this age. People, they don't even believe there's such a thing as a demigod, but to speak of becoming one. If you don't believe the entity exists, then why would you bother trying to become it? Just like if we heard you could become I don't know what a good example is. There was this movie called Avatar. You can become an avatar. But do we actually believe that such a thing actually exists right now? Probably not. I mean, I don't see so many people, although they may have liked the movie called Avatar, I don't see so many people training to become an avatar. Because they don't really believe it exists. They're not going to spend any energy to do the impossible. So they don't believe in demigods, so no one's working to become a demigod. Maybe a few devotees think that the consolation prize for being a devotee, at the end of life, you go to the heavenly planets. Prabhupada once mentioned that the problem with the Hare Krishna devotees, some of them, is that they want to go to the heavenly planets. On the other hand, work on this earthly planet, it also requires some desire. People have this idea that we're going to have a life in paradise by all the different inventions they're coming up with. The technology will, if you don't like this world, you put on a pair of glasses and you can go to any world you want to. If you don't like this world, you go to the movie theater. They'll have 10D movie theaters. And if you really like the movie, and they'll give you, they'll sell you a pair of glasses with the movie, and you live there for years in the movie. All until some so-called pandemic comes along and destroys everyone's, faith in the unlimited opportunities for sense gratification. We can go on with sinful activities. You can kill as many animals as you like. Unrestricted sex life, which is more. When I went to college, it was the beginning of the sexual revolution. Just the beginning of it. There was still some morality, and then of course they had Haight-Ashbury and things like that, which is like to put morality aside for some time, but even people who participate in that become disgusted. But from what I understand, that modern colleges, that's all they do. They have no other business. Co-educational dorms, co-educational bathrooms. For them, they don't believe there's such a thing as a man and woman anymore. They're both the same. It's just, they think it's just, they're living in illusion. For instance, there was one video, as I said before, but I'll repeat it. One reporter went to a college in America, in Oregon, and he was asking the college students. He said that if I said or I believed, he was, maybe 5'10" or something like that, whatever in meters it is, white person. He said, if I believed that I was a 6'10" Chinese woman, would you accept that? If I told you I think I'm a 6'10" Chinese woman, would you accept it? And the students were saying, well, if you really feel like that, I guess we'd have to accept it, yeah, sure, why not? So divorce of any kind of reality, people have entered into such a dreamland of, unreality, that the last count I saw was 87 different designations for a person, gender. It used to be man or woman, or maybe, homosexual, lesbian, but now they have 87. And it's fluid. You wake up one day, you can have one gender. Can't restrict you, it's too. So we can imagine, what is the destination? What does it all cause? Desire. Unrestricted sense gratification has robbed people of intelligence. Even the most obvious things they can't understand. What to speak of the most obvious thing? The fact that their body's changing. They go, my body's changing. I think it's the same body I had as when I was in the womb of my mother. It's the same body. It's just changed, but it's not changing. And it's exactly the same body. It's just gotten bigger, that's all. The same body. It's exactly the same body, but gotten bigger. Oh, okay. We'll try to figure that one out. And I'm completely different. I'm completely different. So you try to convince people who actually believe that their body hasn't changed and that they're completely different. I mean, what more can you try to convince them of? The thing that is most obvious thing, that our body's different and we're the same. If they think the body's completely the same and they're different, if they think they're their mind or something, then what other knowledge can you actually give them? Then if they want to, they can become a 6'10" Chinese lady. They can become anything because they have no basis of reality of their existence. And they'll prove scientifically. They'll have some test, genetic test that comes back, says you're a 6'10" Chinese woman. By science, they'll prove it. So the point is that people should try to understand the basic principles, like our desires will actually have some impact in where we're going to go. And if people don't really care where they're going to go, as I said before, Prabhupada was giving a lecture at one university, and he was saying, if you act like a dog, then you'll become a dog. And one student raised her hand and said, Swamiji, you say if I act like a dog, then I'm going to become a dog. But I want you to know I don't care if I become a dog. I want to become a dog. Prabhupada said, you have my blessings. Some people don't care. They don't care what they're desiring. They don't care what movie they watch. They don't care what they eat. They don't care of anything. Whatever their senses dictate to them, that's what they're into. Try this drug, try that drug. They don't care what happens to people who have tried that drug because, they have no discrimination. Even when I went to college, where drugs were actually more difficult to get, they were actually not so easy to get any drugs. At least where I went to. I mean, I went to college. It was supposed to be one of the more liberal places in the East Coast of America, University of Buffalo. But even there, drugs were not very easily available. But some of my high school friends, they had something called LSD, which everyone knows about. But then they came up with TPC, I think it was called. Did anyone hear of TPC? It's supposed to be 100 times more powerful than LSD. What's that? Yeah, it was like some kind of crazy drug. And one of my friends told me he had a friend, I didn't know this secondhand information, who took like 10 tabs of that because he didn't want to come down anymore. So he spent the rest of his life hallucinating. Because he wanted, they thought this world is not so good. Hallucinations, you never know. Everything turns purple one moment, green the next moment. It's really interesting if you're crazy. And people have no idea what the purpose of life is. They have no idea how to achieve it. All they're doing is being fed so much nonsense that all they can think is like, whatever experience I have that might be, interesting, that's better than all this nonsense I'm being, fed by the newspapers, by the radio, by the universities, by everyone. There's no clear goal of life except to somehow or another get some sense gratification. And for those people who have some frustration trying to do something, they just go crazy and they'll try anything just to get some experience. But at least we have some direction in life. In other words, we understand that we have to control our thoughts. We have to control our desires. We may not be able to control our thoughts. The thoughts will come, but we don't have to become attached to them. Any crazy thought that comes to our mind, as soon as we grab onto it, then immediately we get entangled in it and we suffer. If we're a devotee who's not suffering all the time like most people, then if you grab onto some crazy thought, then immediately you become bewildered and start suffering. For a normal person, so-called normal person, they grab onto a thought, a crazy thought, and just as it's just as crazy as the last thought they had. They think, well, that's really extreme, but was really extreme 5 years ago is normal now. As a matter of fact, in some parts of the world, unless you think like that, you're considered to be abnormal. If you don't agree that there's 87 different gender identities in certain parts of America, then you're considered to be a threat to the normal society. You're considered to be the person out. And therefore, you're creating a disturbance. And therefore, we have to get rid of you for the benefit of society. And then you start thinking, well, maybe there's 81 different. I'm not as bad as you think. I believe in 81. 82 is a little far out, but 81 may be the right number. Then people start conforming. They start doing what everyone else thinks is right in that company because they're afraid of being different, being left out of the crowd, being isolated. So that's how society is working nowadays. Things are getting more and more extreme, and people, because they have no direction in life, they don't believe that there's actually a reality that you can judge everything from. Therefore, they're willing to gradually accept any crazy thing. As it said that when the sages heard that Pariksha Maharaj caught a black man beating on a cow and a bull, the sages at that time, they couldn't believe it. Such a thing could actually happen. And nowadays, if you beat on a cow, bull, if you kill the cows and bulls, that's considered to be normal. And if you hit a dog, then you'll get arrested. Because the dogs are people and cows and other animals, they're not. Why? Because the dog licks my face and therefore it's a person. It's part of the family. Fifi is part of the family. Don't touch Fifi. But in other parts of the world, it's not like that. They don't see like that. Like one lady was going to this restaurant in Hong Kong with a French poodle. Beautifully, manicured French poodle, the tail was the white, little round, fluffy ball of hair, and, the tail was beautiful little French poodle. She went to the French restaurant, the Chinese restaurant, and they don't allow dogs in the restaurant. It says no dogs. So she said, all right. So she gave the dog to the dog keeper, who didn't speak a word of and pointed to the dog. And the keeper at the door said, oh, yes, no problem. So she went in and ordered something. They gave her a special plate. And she came out and she thought, this is really interesting food. She came out. She said, where's my dog? She said, dog? Well, then for them, it's completely normal. I was in the Philippines. Eating dogs is completely normal in the Philippines. They said it's a little salty. It's nice meat. It's salty. The devotees who ate dogs. So people have no standard. They have no idea what reality is. They don't know what the future is. They think the future is iPhone 13. That's the future. They can't look around and see so many animals and beasts and birds. They can't see how people are affected by different activities. They have no discrimination. Therefore, our business is to chant Hare Krishna. And maybe some people will hear the holy name, enter into and get a little bit of enlightenment. And maybe if we distribute books, people will read something, and they'll understand a little bit, maybe become interested and come here and find out that they're not their body from Krishna. Then there's some hope. Otherwise, there is absolutely no hope. Except for this Hare Krishna movement, everything else is just floating around in some kind of relative world, where one side of the stool is good, because it's baked by the sun. The other side is bad because it's wet. And they're just arguing over the whole thing. In the meantime, people are just going on with sinful activities because they have no idea what actually proper activities are. And the people who are leading, who are encouraging them for these sinful activities, who are even more sinful than they are doing the same thing, just in a different way, that's all. And the whole society is becoming degraded because there's no enlightenment. There's no illumination. People are being misdirected. They know what the leaders are doing are bad, but they don't think what they're doing is bad. But what they're doing is just as bad as the leaders are in many cases. And therefore they're going nowhere except for the dark ignorance. So Srila Prabhupada said that this movement will go down in history as saving society from the darkest times. So we're getting there. So maybe this movement will pick up because it's getting pretty dark out there. Okay, I'll stop there. Any questions? Comments? Yes.
Hare Krishna, what would you tell person who asks you what is the most important thing about cow? Why we don't eat cows? What would you tell?
We can't digest them easily. Well, why don't we eat cows? Because we can't offer them to Krishna. That's, Prabhupada said, we're not, if Krishna said, give me a steak, then we'd offer to him. But he doesn't eat steaks. He protects cows. He doesn't eat them. They give milk. Therefore, anyhow, the real point is we only eat what Krishna accepts, and he doesn't accept meat, fish, and eggs. He tells us in Bhagavad Gita what he accepts. That's what we offer him. There may be other reasons why cows have some value, because their milk is beneficial. If you can digest it, then it actually leads to higher brain tissues, so you can understand your body. But the ultimate purpose is because Krishna tells us what to accept, and we accept everything belongs to Krishna. Therefore, whatever we eat, we offer to him first. Anything else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the lecture. My question is related to the verse in question somehow. And this is also, I'm relating this to my own experience, because before I got into Krishna consciousness and chanting the Maha Mantra on Tulsi beads, I was chanting some Lord Shiva mantra on Rudraksh, and like worshipping the demigod, so to say. And I was wondering, because this is also my own experience, can worship of the demigods then actually lead and thus be beneficial, lead towards worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead?
Yeah, it's possible. When probably there was a festival in India every year, they have a Durga Puja. Have you ever you heard of Durga Puja? So in India, if anyone's been to India, they know that their loudspeakers are not like, our refined speakers here. You've been to India? So even on Padayatra, when we go on Padayatra, if you don't go deaf, at least you won't be able to hear for a couple of days. Get too near the speaker. all the birds get near, they just drop. Can't take the sound, they just, drop out of the sky when they hear it. So these loudspeakers are, just blasting away in the background during the Durga Puja. And they're singing this song, you probably don't know, it's an American movie. I think it's from The King and I didn't see them. It's the hills are alive with the sound of music. Mary Martin, if you ever heard of it. And just like blasting everywhere. This is Durga Puja. So the devotee asked Prabhupada, he said, which are better? I mean, this is all going during, Prabhupada was probably in his room or something, they were in Calcutta. Which is better, this Durga Puja or the Christians, the way they worship God? So Prabhupada said, the Durga Puja is better. Because at least they're in the Vedic conception, and therefore they follow that they may get a chance to, reading the Vedic literature, understand, what the gradations are, and they may advance gradually to a higher mode of worship. Because at least that's what the Vedic culture is meant for, to gradually introduce you from one style of worship to a higher style. So that's possible. If they're actually worshiping properly. But that's not so easy nowadays. To worship Lord Shiva is a Vaishnava. See, we have the story of Rikasura. He also worshipped Lord Shiva by cutting flesh from his body and throwing it into a fire. And then finally, he was hoping Lord Shiva would come and give him a benediction, but he didn't come. So he bathed himself like an animal, took his hair, and over the fire is going to cut his head off and throw it into the fire as his final offering to Lord Shiva. But Lord Shiva appeared from the fire, and out of compassion, Prabhupada said, because Lord Shiva's his compassion was invoked. And then he said, he touched the body of Rikasura, and it healed by his mercy. He said, you don't really have to go through all these problems, all this trouble to worship me. He said, if you just offer me a little Ganges water and bilva fruit, then I'm satisfied. He said, but anyhow, since you went through all this trouble, I'll give you a benediction. So the demon said, Rikasura said, I want the benediction that whose every head I touch will crack into thousands of pieces. So Lord Shiva thought, wow, I gave the wrong person. But anyhow, this is Lord Shiva, he's Ashutosh. He easily gives benedictions just to get rid of people. It doesn't bother him. So he said, all right, benediction. Then the demon went to Lord Shiva to touch his head so it would crack into thousands of pieces so he could steal Parvati, his wife. So Lord Shiva fled, and Rikasura, I guess he had some power, he chased after Lord Shiva throughout the whole universe. Till finally, Lord Shiva went to Svetadweep, where Krishna appeared as a brahmachari with rudraksha beads and a deer skin. And Lord Shiva ran past, and Lord Vishnu, he saw him, he said, that's all right, I'll take care of it. So Rikasura ran after him, ran past Lord Vishnu, and Lord Vishnu, in the form of a brahmachari, said, stop, O son of Rakuni. Rakuni was Rikasura's father's name. So, oh, you know my father. Rikasura stopped. He said, yeah, we're a friend of the family, So Rikasura, well, here's a friend of the family, I should say something. So he said, why are you running so fast? He said, if you keep on running so fast, you're going to wear your body out. And if you wear your body out, then you won't be able to fulfill the desires of your mind. You should take it a little, easy. So if you want to, you can tell me why you're exerting yourself so much. So he said, well, to tell you the truth, I got this benediction from Lord Shiva that whose every head I touched would crack into thousands of pieces. And I wanted to steal his wife, so I wanted to try it out. So Lord Vishnu, in the form of a brahmachari, said, oh my God, you don't believe that, do you? And I heard from reliable sources that Lord Shiva, he was in the sacrifice for Daksha was there. And because he offended Daksha cursed him. And now he's been ghostly haunted since then. And he's been going all around the universe handing out false benedictions. So, if you really think he gave you a real benediction, then I think what you should do is touch your head and see if it works or not. And if it doesn't work, then you should go and find this rascal Lord Shiva and you should kill him. So Vrikasura was deluded by the superior energy of Krishna and said, well, yeah, you could be right. So he touched his head and it cracked into 1,000 pieces and he died. So that kind of works with Lord Shiva is not recommended. There's better ways of doing it. Anything else? Okay, thank you very much. Grandaraj Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande.